Hi, and welcome to this recording of the author, which is me, Nicole Murphy, reading from The Right Connection, the new novella that I am self-publishing. It's just been released today, and I hope you're going to all enjoy it. To give you a little bit of a taste of it, here is the first scene of The Right Connection. Taylor Wilson loved Great Falls at this time of the day. The rising sun cast a golden glow on the whitewashed buildings and warmed the cool night air. Insects that had spent the night in rest were now buzzing around the extensive gardens, birds trilling in the trees. Around her, other residents of Great Falls moved through their day. From the way they walked, Taylor could tell which ones were hurrying to work because they were late, which ones were rushing home to be with their families, and which ones were out socially. Every once in a while, the unscreened thoughts of an inexperienced sentient impacted on her, but she screened them out and moved on. A socolapede-drawn carriage rumbled past. Taylor appreciated that few were allowed in the city proper, not just because the rumbling of the wheels over the hard-packed dirt disturbed peace. She couldn't look at the tame socolapeds without thinking of the other socolapeds, the evil they were perpetrating, and having cold shudders run through her body. Taylor stared at the beast. This one was quite small. The shelled back only came to her hip, the head as high as her own. It stood on long, spindly legs with large hoofs at the end. She knew those legs were deceptively frail-looking. The strength within them had delivered more than one fatal wound to a fighter. Its arms were also spindly, but the ends had three large claws arranged like a bird's talons so they could grip. Its head looked like a helmet with just a slit for its eyes, although it did have a moving jaw. Socolapeds came in various colours. This one was a shimmering blue-green, which seemed to ripple in the morning sun. Beautiful, and she knew it was completely under control. But still, when she got to work, she would telepathically connect with Liesl, her fighter. After a week's break, Liesl would undoubtedly have a ream of stories of the socolapede army and the devastation that had been wrought on innocent men and women. Homes destroyed, adults killed, children taken. Taylor was sure she wasn't the only soldier who didn't trust that the domesticated socolapeds would remain trusted pack animals. If only her predecessors hadn't picked and chosen the socolapeds to tame when the strange creatures had arrived in the lands long ago abandoned by humanity. If only they'd taken them all and destroyed the animals that weren't necessary, the horrors of today wouldn't be happening. Taylor waited until the beast and the carriage it pulled had disappeared around a corner before continuing her journey. The sun was well into the sky when she reached her office. It was bare, the walls white. The only thing it contained was a headpiece hanging from the ceiling. She fitted over her head, felt it slip into place over her eyes and ears, and then the room disappeared. Her awareness expanded, and it seemed she was standing in the middle of a tent city with fighters moving around her. None of them were wearing their bulky protective armour, instead dressed in the clean lines of their day-to-day uniforms, t-shirt, belted trousers, boots. As the view scanned around, Taylor noted tents being dismantled. The fighters were moving to the next offensive. She was seeing, hearing, smelling what Liesl was. She was connected. "Good morning, Liesl," she said. The reply sounded like a normal voice, although Taylor knew what she was hearing was a thought. "Good morning, Taylor. I hope you enjoyed the break, because I think you're going to need to be as refreshed as possible today." "Tell me what's happening." The tents began to move past Taylor's vision. Liesl was walking. There have been some minor skirmishes around the town of Weirton. We've been selected to lead a small investigative party to ascertain if this is just a rogue group of socolapeds or if it is a sign of a new thrust. The offensive main line has moved 5 miles south in the past day, so this information is vital. Taylor frowned. 5 miles in one day was a huge gain. Can you show me the map of the region we're going to? Heading to it as we speak. Taylor nodded. This was one of the joys of being connected with a fighter for a long time. They came to know you so well they could anticipate your needs. After looking at the map through Liesel's eyes, Taylor had Liesel gather the fighters she wanted to be part of the sortie and gave instructions for what they were to take with them. While the fighters got themselves organized, Taylor's mind went to the region she had been shown. It slid smoothly away, adjusting easily to being away from the support of the communications gear and moving to a place that she had never physically been yet could now see clearly. Her ability to see beyond herself was one of Taylor's greatest gifts and a big reason why she'd moved up the ranks of the land corps so quickly. The damage by the socolapeds was easy to see, burning and destruction everywhere. She found the safest route to the destination and determined what their first acts would be. Returning to Liesel, she found the assembled fighters waiting by a wagon drawn by 2 small socolapede. She gave the directions to Liesel, and while the fighters journeyed to the area, Taylor spent the trip talking to the soldiers who were connected to the other fighters, outlining what she had already seen and what they needed to be aware of. Some of those fighters were here in Great Falls, some of those soldiers would be here in Great Falls with her, some in the capital Leeton, others spread across the Land Corps bases. Such was the strength of the Land Corps. Thanks to telepathy, they could put their valuable soldiers anywhere they saw fit. Once the fighters reached the town of Weirton, they moved on foot. Looking through Liesel's eyes, which gave Taylor much better vision than her mind trip had, she saw the signs of the socolapede, cloven footprints in the dirt, scratches on the buildings showing where the vicious claws had marked them, the headless remains of the men and women who had tried to fight back, the other men and women cowering in one of the houses. The children were missing, as always. They spent several hours wandering around the area, and it became clear that this was a one-off attack, their aim solely to take the children. They'd come to the village, killed, and then left with their precious cargo. None of the outlying farms had been damaged. The fighters escorted the survivors to the nearest medical centre, then went back to the camp, which was now completely packed up. After praying for the children's safety and sending a crew to the area to bury the dead, the camp began marching to the main offensive line. With no need to remain connected, Taylor took off the headset. She stretched the stiffness from her limbs, hating the way her body tensed during connection. She turned to leave, intending to go to the cafeteria and get something to eat and drink, but saw an orange flag hanging from the door handle, a summons to see the colonel. Taylor went to her commanding officer's office immediately, and the secretary waved her right in. Pushing open the door, Taylor stepped into a room furnished with chairs and a table. Looking around, she saw the colonel staring out the window. "Captain Taylor Wilson reporting, ma'am." Taylor gave the land call salute. "Sit, Captain." The colonel didn't turn around until Taylor had taken the seat. The other woman stared at Taylor, so she took the opportunity to look back. The colonel was young, only recently come to the position after the socolapede had killed her predecessor during an attack. She was known as tough and dedicated, a woman who had forsaken husband and family to give her all to the Land Corps. Her body was battle-ready, unlike a lot of the soldiers who took advantage of their lack of physical activity to let themselves go. Taylor could just as easily imagine her as a fighter than as a soldier. Finally the colonel spoke. "I believe you investigated another taking today, Captain." "Yes, ma'am." "Your third this week?" "Yes, ma'am." Another long pause. "Captain, We have lost too many of our children to the socolapede. We have tried again and again to save them, and it is time for another assault." Taylor heard the crack in the Colonel's voice and nodded enthusiastically. She wanted the children back as much as anyone did. Tonight she was going to have some terrible nightmares, wondering where they were, what was happening to them. It happened every time she investigated a taking. The Colonel continued, "We had decided to give you a new fighter, and you will train with this fighter to infiltrate the socolapede stronghold and free the children." Taylor let this news settle in her mind before she spoke. "Ma'am, I'm more than willing to take on this mission, but do I need a new fighter? Liesl and I work so well together." "To be successful, this mission needs our best soldier and our best fighter." Taylor accepted the backhanded compliment without comment. "Who would you have me connect to, ma'am?" "Roden." Millions of ideas whirled through Taylor's mind as she tried to process the information. "Roden? I'm going to assume you've heard the tales about him, and they are correct. He is difficult. He does ignore the soldier when it suits him, and he has been responsible for good soldiers leaving the Corps. But he is also the finest fighter we have, brave, daring, and incredibly skilled. I have no doubt that you can work with him to complete this mission." Again Taylor's mind overran with shouts and screams as concerns and questions fought until one settled into prominence. "But he's male." The Colonel stared for so long that Taylor had to fight not to squirm. She must be aware Taylor had never connected with a male, and it was recommended she never was. Just when Taylor thought she was going to blurt something else out, her commanding officer spoke. "I know that it will be uncomfortable for you, Captain. If you feel unable to take on this mission, simply say so. It will not reflect badly on your career." They were nice words, but Taylor knew the Land Corps did not work like that. Already, people were commenting that she had never connected with a male fighter. If she were to refuse this mission, it would not be officially recorded, but everyone would know she was avoiding men, and it would impact on her career. She had no choice. "When do we commence training?" she said. So, there you go. That's the opening scene of The Right Connection. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it enough to go and buy the rest of the novella and find out, can Taylor bring herself to connect to Roden? If she can, will the two of them be successful in saving the children? Thank you, and all the best.